Welcome to the Bitcoin Business Podcast and hosted by Sovreign, put on by me, Brandon Karpolis. And today I have with me a special guest I met out at the Bitcoin for Financial Services Summit, which was an awesome event. I've talked about it on this pod before, but um, yeah, if they do it again next year, everyone should definitely get out and do that because it was an awesome experience. I got to meet people like Jason Keel, who is with me here today. Keel, am I saying that right? Or is it Kyle?
Kyle, yeah.
It is Kyle. Okay, so
I'll,
Jason
yeah,
Kyle, spelled like Keel, in case you're
yeah.
wondering.
People pronounce it Key all the time. I don't always correct them, but I pronounce it Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, my last name is just butchered all the time. So,
Yeah.
except for when I went out to BTC Prague, everyone pronounced my name correctly out there. So
Yeah.
that
My,
that
my
was
last name is German, so I would imagine if
okay.
I
Yeah,
was in Germany, yeah, I wouldn't have
S-
any problems.
same thing. Yeah, yeah. My name's Austrian, and so we were in Vienna and Prague, and they all knew how to say it correctly. So, but anyways, for us gringos, Keel, actually, Jason Kyle from Polaris Payments, and um, Jason has an interesting story. We'll let him tell the story, but he runs a merchant payment processor, which with the news of Square this past couple weeks and finally getting rolled out this week, and lots of attention being focused on this. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. But I want to hear about first. We were talking at the conference and here that you had quite a multifaceted Bitcoin journey. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, how you actually got into Bitcoin, and maybe the more important facets of what took you down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, there's so many interconnected dots. It's funny. So when I first started my business in 2010, it was the same year as Bitcoin Pizza Day. So the very first transaction ever taken place in Bitcoin. And I was trying to get some traction, and this is a brand new business. My wife was helping out with some blog posts, and she's a really good writer. She ghost wrote this blog post on Bitcoin, and I ended up on a radio show, and I drove from Tacoma up to Seattle. The problem is I didn't know anything about Bitcoin, and they wanted to know about the future of commerce, the future of transactions, and the whole time I was, uh, you know, trying to make my way through it as someone who really didn't know what they were talking about. Fortunately, I've learned a thing or two over time, and I've put some hours in. Uh, but you know, I bought a Bitcoin for $100. I sold it for 5,000. I thought I had made bank, and it really took. It was it was 2020 or 2021 when the bull market happened, and we were gone for 7 months. I came back home, and the very first thing I was rummaging through all my drawers trying to figure out where my little USB stick was. I knew I had bought some Bitcoin, and I found the USB stick and I plugged it in. It's the very first thing I did when I got home. And sure enough, I had six figures on it. And at that point, I knew I should probably try and figure out what this is. And that began me on my journey. I went to a crypto conference, I went to a Bitcoin conference. I knew there was a difference. I didn't know who was right at the time. The crypto conference, they were very, there's a lot of shiny objects. It was exciting, it was fun. The Bitcoin conference, there was a wait, and people were sober. They understood the deep reality that we're not just building something for fun. There is a real problem with the current financial system. Their time horizon was 100 years or more, and I could tell that these were really thoughtful people, and I began to just read book after book and listen to podcast after podcast, and here we are today.
So what actually happened when you drove up and did that interview, supposing to be talking about Bitcoin, not knowing anything about it?
Well, I knew a lot about payments. I mean,
Okay.
I was. maybe a year or so into my payments business. So at this point, I'm 15 years into my payments business. I have 15x the experience, but I still, payments was becoming my profession. And so I had a lot of thoughts on the transition from cash to digital money. I had a lot of thoughts on, adoption of credit cards. Back then we were still, I mean, even today, we're still growing in credit card usage. We're still transitioning from paper checks to credit cards. I am still today onboarding merchants from paper checks just to begin accepting credit cards. Or, from an old school desktop terminal, and they're just now getting set up with online payments or the ability to key in a card onto a website. The narrative back then was, don't ever put your credit card in a website. It's too dangerous, right?
Oh,
Obviously, we
it's
have
like save
e
it on your computer to be able to use on
yeah,
every website.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the narrative has changed, and that Overton window is going to continue to change with Bitcoin. You know, 15 years from now, it'll be very interesting to look back at this conversation and see just how early we are. But at the same time, these legacy systems take a lot of time to change. We're still in 2025 onboarding merchants just to get started on accepting credit cards. So
That, that's so crazy. I mean, and that's, it's a trope, but for a reason. The we're so early. Like, think about the fact that you were asked 15 years ago, like after one transaction on the Bitcoin network had happened, to go on a radio station and talk about the future of commerce, the future of digital payments. And probably at the time it seemed like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen in like 3 years. We're already on a radio station. We saw Bitcoin Pizza Day. Everyone's going to realize that this is a much better solution to the problem of, like you said, credit cards and the internet, putting in all this data peer to peer. You don't need a bank, blah, 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 blah. And 15 years later, it's like we have less than 1% of like real global adoption into it. Now we've gone from zero to a $2 trillion asset, and a significant, a large minority, I guess, is probably the best way to put it, have figured this out, have been storing their wealth in it. It continues to accrue value at a record pace if you zoom out far enough. But like all these people that are, where's my bull run? Why aren't we at 300,000? Where's my $500,000 Bitcoin? It's like, guys, this stuff takes time. Like, once you all see it, once you see it as an individual, first of all, it probably took most people a few years to get to that point. And so you're asking people basically to go on a 3-year journey in like 2 weeks, and that's just not going to happen. A, number one, and then B, number two, it just like you said, these legacy systems are in place, and it just takes a ton of time. It's funny you're mentioning people like just getting to credit cards, and it's like, well, in 5 to 10 years, would they have been better off just skipping straight to Bitcoin? And, kind of like Africa just went from no
yeah,
phones to mobile phones. Like, they didn't bother to stop with the landlines and build all this ridiculous infrastructure and all this other stuff. Like, I almost wonder if some of these merchants might just be better off doing that. But yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting because I think I was wrong on three things when I started my payments company. Uh, the first being, I thought that credit cards were technology and that technology would be disrupted. I thought that Square or Stripe or somebody would come along and disrupt the card brands. A bank or Apple would come out with their own payment rail or something. And they never did. And Visa and MasterCard adoption is just up and to the right every single year. And then the second one is that I had no idea that it was that things would get disrupted, but it wasn't out of Silicon Valley. It was the foundational layer of money itself. And it's like, it's not like new things are built on top of money. It's that the money itself is crumbling from underneath.
Yeah. So along those lines, to put my tinfoil hat on, I mean, I agree with you. Like, there should be some payment disruption here. Like, there is just no reason that Apple couldn't have their own payment rails, I mean, they have Apple Pay, which you just tap your phone. And it's like, were these guys potentially thinking about that, maybe building out their own infrastructure and maybe like tapped on the shoulder, like, nice non-payments business you have there. Sure would be a shame if you lost it. I could easily see something like that have happened where there was desire to innovate and things like that, and maybe they were slowed down by some forces that don't want to lose their monopoly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, these are very powerful networks, and i- the frustrating thing for me, of course, I'm not necessarily economically incentivized to say this, but we live in a fiat duopoly. And the tough thing for merchants today is that, if you're an everyday retailer, if you're an e-commerce business, to accept money, you have to uh, go through these rails, which means you can only accept 97%. You can only receive 97% of your money just to be in business, right? And if you have 3% margins, that means you have 0% margins, right? And you have to go through all of these obstacles, and if there's so many drawbacks, we can get into them later, but from the fees and the chargebacks and the uh, centralized control, I've got all kinds of clients that just want to accept money, and there's all these friction and these centralized authorities saying what you can and cannot do. It's transaction limits, transaction sizes, industries that they don't like, and they say, "Oh, nope, you're a certain industry, so you can't accept money." And it's a real frustrating experience for most merchants.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been noticing more and more, like, uh, and maybe it's just because I'm, every day I get deeper in the Bitcoin ecosphere, but it seems to me like more and more signs than I ever remember popping up, discount and cash or surcharge and credit card. I mean, we do it at Sovereign. We offer a discount in Bitcoin, and we you pay the surcharge if you want to pay in fiat, and like we just put it out there right in front of you. And it's have you noticed it more and more? Is I mean, you're dealing with this stuff like firsthand every single day. You're in the weeds of the weeds on this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple different programs, and it's kind of semantics, but there's all these like legal nuances. One program is called dual pricing, another cash discount. So dual pricing, for example, let's say your price is $100, and then if you pay by credit card, you got to pay like 103 or 104, and then cash discount, your price is $100, and if you pay by cash, then it's only 97 or $96. Um, and so it's kind of two approaches to the same goal of not having to get stuck with all the fees. And for a consumer, if the transaction size is low enough, it's not a big deal. If you have a $10 transaction and you got to pay an extra 30 cents, who cares, But for a merchant, you might be saving $1,000 a month. You might be saving, uh, I mean, it depends on the size of the merchant, but there can be some significant savings, which really is a meaningful addition to the bottom line for a small business.
Yeah, I mean, so many of these businesses operate on such razor thin margins that difference can make or break a company. And let's be honest, I mean, I've told my story on here many times, but part of the reason I left Fiat land was I was watching businesses be profitable on paper, but not profitable in real terms when compared to inflation. And it's so if you have a business that's even making like 6% profits, um, but they're printing money at 8, well, you're losing 2%. Now, if you can claw back 3%, all of a sudden you're in the green, and that makes such a huge difference. And my favorite is this, these options is when you're going to pay your like vehicle registration or get a city sticker or whatever, and then the city comes at you and they're like, "Oh, if you want to pay via debit card, it's an extra percent. Credit card, it's like you guys have no margin analysis done anywhere. You guys have been running like 50% deficits for you know it is as long as the cities existed. You have the most underfunded pension in the entire United States, and it's like, oh, we're just trying to even out our profit margin here. It's like, give me an absolute break. And to your point, it's like, okay, I'm sure there's tons of processing that goes through there, but even still, it's like, oh, great, we got an extra. 10 grand or something and we owe 10 billion. And it's just like, I see it and I just laugh. I'm like, yeah, let's pretend like you're running a, tightly budgeted business here.
I was I listened to the I think he was on Modern Wisdom, Sam Corcos, and he's effectively the CTO for the Treasury Department and IRS. And one of the most interesting aspects of that interview was how some of these employees are managing millions, if not potentially billions in some cases, of dollars, of taxpayer dollars, and they're making like 120K or something. Like for their skill set and the level of money they're managing, in many cases, especially for the engineers, they're well underpaid, well below market wage for that scale. And it was just so interesting hearing about how poorly managed, from the inside. You can hear, him sharing about the government. I'm just grateful. I don't. I'm just in private. I am in a privately owned business, and I work with privately owned businesses. It cuts out a lot of the noise.
I mean, I worked at the ultimate example of that massive juxtaposition. I worked at a bank, and like every single person at the bank is handling minimum nine figures, and a lot of people 10 figures, and it's just yeah. And I mean, it was a decent living, but it was compared to the amount of like actual money you're managing, in charge of, overseeing, and even I mean, even the discrepancy between, and I would handle the distress deals at the bank, and the discrepancy between the amount of money I had the potential to save or lose the company every year, like compared to my salary. And listen, I understand you can't, at some point the unit economics don't make sense as a financial institution, but it's like my salary compared to the amount of money I was responsible for. And not only just from a principal standpoint, but directly related to the income statement. And it's like, if I screwed something up or had a bad deal, I could massively swing things orders of magnitude different than like what I was being paid at the time. And it is insane to think about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So, why don't you talk to us a little bit about Polaris payments? Obviously, you started it before you became a Bitcoiner. I don't think you have Bitcoin integration yet. Obviously, the big news. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but this is like right before. This is the Friday before Square is going to release their Bitcoin optionality on their point of sale system. And so, talk us through a little bit about how you initially set things up, what your goal was, and are we looking to start integrating business into this from the payment side? And then, additionally, have you adopted Bitcoin as a treasury strategy, not as like a Bitcoin treasury company, if you will, but for your actual business to store your savings in?
Uh, yes, 100% on the last question. We fully run on a Bitcoin standard. We view Bitcoin as money, not as an investment. We save in Bitcoin. We don't save in fiat. All of our revenue, not all of it, much of our revenue comes in the form of US dollars. And then we just convert as much of that as we can, other than just cash flow. We've been profitable for many years, and so we are, yeah, cash flowing business, and we just dump it all into Bitcoin. And I view that as doing something very conservative, right? We're not like making a speculative investment. I view it as the most conservative thing in the world, just saving money. Or I'm not even investing. I'm just literally just saving money in a savings account, like a normal, boring business. But the form of money that I use is scarce, cannot be printed, works anywhere, cannot be confiscated, you know the drill, etc. And and so that's obviously been a very powerful thing for us, and it really has kind of eased the tension of running a business and given us a lot more power to uh, to chill and care for the most important things in life and my family and care well for our team members, care well for our clients, and not have to try to just maximize profit. And that's been a really cool, really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
When
I
I started,
oh, sorry. Go
yeah,
on. Sorry to
yeah,
cut you
no,
off
jump
there.
in.
I
Yeah,
was I was talking to someone yesterday. I was being interviewed, and they asked me. They said, "So, why should a business adopt Bitcoin? There's all this volatility. How's it going to help them? How's it going to help them at the end of this year or next year?" And I said, "You know what? It's not. I said, You have to zoom out. You have to be willing to say, I'm undertaking this strategy because in 4 to 5 years, then I will have a cushion. Then I will have increased purchasing power. Then, as you so eloquently said, I will be able to chill. I won't have to be in the rat race. I won't constantly have to find new revenue streams. I won't have to constantly, watch every decimal point of my margins. Not that I shouldn't be watching my margins, but it just becomes such a lesser point of emphasis. And you are actually able to know in the back of your mind that your business is making money and yet your purchasing power is going to be preserved. But you have to have that 4 to 5 year outlook. And I said this can't be a 4 to 5 month outlook, a 10 month outlook. Like, this is really setting yourself up for the future, and it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in the very short term. And you're making this decision to um, hustle today that you were going to be doing anyways, running a business. It's just in 5 years from now, you won't have to grind so hard and you won't be killing yourself just to stay on the hamster wheel to pay your bills.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I also just believe in it. The more I study the current financial system, the more I look under the hood, the more brokenness I see, and the more I want to vote with my money and extract myself from the current broken fiat system, and say, um, with that, that little vote that I can, make, that this is a, I believe in hard sound money that is freedom money that is empowering to me and to many others around the world. It's for everyone, and it's a really cool thing. Uh, I'm very, very blessed. More to an extent, like more than just financial freedom. I'm very blessed to have the understanding of Bitcoin. There's a lot of folks that don't get it yet. And I got to a place in my business where I I was comfortable and my mission be, began to shift more and more towards impact and less towards just trying to put food on the table. And I was trying to look at what are the biggest levers that can be pulled to making an impact on this short time that I have on Earth. And I looked at climate change because that affects everyone on Earth and everyone in the future. I looked at a lot of different things. And and then of course there's a lot of politics involved with climate change. Some people say it's the end of the world. Some people say it's not real. There's a lot of similar to crypto and Bitcoin. You got to really cut through and discern what is real, the signal from the noise. And but a lot of it is over my head, frankly. I'm not a scientist. I just didn't understand a lot of it, and I couldn't really understand it. But money, I understand. I have moved over $1 billion through my payments company. I have helped thousands of merchants. I've been an investor for years. One of the things that I started doing early on, because I was like, it's the technology. These car brands are going to die at some point, and so I better have a plan B. And so I started buying rental properties. And so, uh, went really deep down that rabbit hole and bought several rental properties until I discovered Bitcoin and realized it's such a better investment than rental properties. But really quick tangent. Do you want to hear? I was looking at the data recently. Do you want to hear how much money I've lost when you denominate in Bitcoin? I've made $500,000 on my first house. I bought it for 186. It's worth 700K. Uh, but do you know how much? If you denominate in Bitcoin, do you know? I don't know how much it's lost.
I'm gonna say like 2 million bucks.
I don't know the dollar. No, it's actually it's infinitely more than that. I would be a billionaire had I bought
Yeah,
had I bought Bitcoin instead of that house. But it's in terms of the percentage, it's lost 99.99% of its value.
yeah.
But
I,
here's the wild
yeah.
thing. Here's the wild thing, Brandon. It's going to do it again.
Oh
It's going to
yeah,
lose another 90%
yeah,
because when we hit, I ran the numbers, and even if we continue, I think we're past the double digit appreciation in real estate. So let's say we continue to appreciate by 5% or something. And so continue to appreciate, okay, in fiat terms. But when we hit $1 million in Bitcoin terms, in Bitcoin, then it's another like 89% or something. I read it's on top of the 99.99%. So I began. This is another part of my journey. Is I made the largest financial decision I've ever made, which is to start selling rental properties, and 100% Bitcoin. I started out. I was like, well, maybe like 20% Bitcoin, 80%, like a real estate syndicate or something. And then the more books I read, the more that ratio went up. The more houses I sold, the more that ratio went up, and ultimately it was 100%. Um,
oh, it's like 99.9. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like the investing adage, right? Like, just because you've lost 99% doesn't mean you can't lose another 99% on the same investment, right? Like, there's,
So it's a wild thing to think about, but
yeah.
yes.
But I mean, it's happening in real time. It's 100% going on, and it took me like 18 months to convince my wife of that. And then one day, it just finally we were on. I'll never forget. We were on a walk in my grandparents live out in Santa Barbara. We were visiting them, and we went on a walk, um, and it just all of a sudden clicked for her. She was just like, "I get it now. Yeah, okay,
And
that yeah."
what was the tipping point, Brandon?
I
What
I think it was that I was
clicked?
like on round 8 of explaining this, and oh, I know what it was. It was our property taxes. We had just gotten the bill, and I was talking about it. And our property tax, I said our property tax went from this. It was like a 20% increase. It was crazy. Um, so we ended up challenging them and doing all that, going through the whole corrupt property tax challenge system here in Cook County, which is lunacy. But that's a different story for a different day. And I was like, they could make that 40%. They could make that 80%. Like, we have no control over that. And we have to pay it no matter what. Can't do that to Bitcoin. And she was like, something in that moment was like, oh yeah, we have full sovereignty over what we're holding, as opposed to subject to the whims of jurisdictional stooges just making random decisions. And then she was like, okay. And then the economics part of it was just that was just you know that was an easy part, but it was like the
This
total
is
lack of control. Yeah.
this is the part where the price is not always the most compelling or only compelling part of Bitcoin.
Hmm.
So many people think real estate is far more conservative than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a speculative investment. It's just the same as buying Tesla stock or something. Until you dig deeper, and I realized during COVID that I don't actually own my rental properties. Now, this is separate from, do I own the house outright versus do I have a loan? Do I have a mortgage on the property? Okay. When someone says they own the house, well, usually they have a loan on the house, so they don't, like, really the bank owns it from a financial standpoint, maybe, but they have the title and deed, and let's whether you own it outright or not. At the end of the day, the government has bigger guns than you, and they can say, and which is what happened to me. They can say, just because you own this property doesn't mean you get to decide what happens, and we're going to let the tenants live there for free as long as they want at the moment, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we were managing our properties by ourselves this time. We were just mom and pop landlords. It was a very stressful time. Uh, the lenders are saying you still got to pay, and the government saying that none of the tenants have to pay if they don't want to. It's a choice now. And this was another reason why Bitcoin is just, I view it as far more conservative in a lot of ways than real estate. Also, real estate is illiquid, right? And so you don't see the price fluctuation on a daily, hourly, per minute basis. But the the beauty is that you can have your own keys, and you can use those here. You can use those in another country. Like, at the end of the day, no one can take that from you, and that is just so cool and so freeing.
Oh, I, as someone who cut their teeth handling distressed real estate during the great financial crisis, like I learned
Mm.
very quickly that the world of real estate is fraught with all sorts of perils and ways to have your that it wasn't risk free, that it wasn't this super conservative asset. Not to mention the fact that a lot of these people went in with high leverage, and then all of a sudden, if you got multifamily piece of investment real estate or even a commercial real estate, all of a sudden you have a tenant or two go under. Well, in 08, 09, we had a general economic recession. It wasn't, the contagion was amongst a lot of people in there. It was a lot of people were suffering the same hardship. Now all of a sudden you don't have the cash flows. Now you can't support the loan. Now the building falls into disrepair. Then people like me would come in. We would foreclose or put a receiver in or do whatever. And it was like you had this asset that went from this pristine, conservative, rightly sized, loan to value, cash flowing asset to, like, in 18 months, in complete disrepair, tenants destroying the building. As you mentioned, no rights to, when you're in these financial crises, the courts do not look fondly on the lien holders or the property owner. They favor the tenants, they favor the people in the building, because those are more voters than you, the bank, or you, the property owner, and you get completely railroaded. And I witnessed that firsthand, and it honestly scared me out of the investment real estate space for pretty much my whole life. And so, seeing that,
Well,
and
you
then, yeah, I mean, depending on your jurisdiction, like you said, the ability to collect rents. I mean, it's like they were just, well, just going to temporarily suspend property rights, and
yeah.
or the
And
classic rent controls. So, like, you're raising taxes on me, and now I can't raise rent onto my tenant. Well, where's that delta getting made up? And it's like it's not. So yeah,
yeah, and I understand. I have empathy for the situation. I understand we're talking about the non-ownership class versus the ownership class, right? That one of the things that was a big eye opener when I started studying Bitcoin is the cancel-on effect, right? The people who are closer to the money printer are the ones that get rich, and it separates the rich and the poor. Well, I'm part of the ownership class by default of having real estate, and so I understand that there needs to be some protections in place at times for some of these folks, especially in the fiat system, because when they turn the
that's
money
the
printer
problem.
on,
Yes,
yes, like
yes.
our yes, and so they don't ever stop turning the money printer on. It's infinite, and so us asset owners, our net worths are going up. The problem is that if you don't own assets, it's really hard to keep up. It's a really big impact when the cost of eggs and housing and energy and everything else is going up, and wages don't keep up. And yeah, I mean, it's a big problem, which I'm sure we could go on for days about. The good news for you is that you've discovered a better asset class, and you don't have to deal with. I mean, real estate's very litigious. There's all kinds of problems. That I've had floods, fires, death. I've had um, evictions. I've had people like literally dragged off the property by the police. I've had the list goes on. It's wild. And it's so cool that I can sleep well at night. I literally sleep so much better at night now that I own Bitcoin, because I know that when I wake up, I'm not going to get a phone call. I'm not going to have a voicemail. I'm not going to have the stress inducing text messages about the flood that took place overnight, the tenants that got locked out, even not managing the properties And now, now we still own some houses and we have property managers that after we got burned out during COVID. But at the end of the day, I'm still the owner, right? Like the lawsuits come to me, the fires, whether they're literal or figurative, uh, they come to me with decisions and the final call. And guess who has to pay for the fires? Me, right?
By the way, if you got the
So
building and you didn't construct it, who knows what the original construction was. I remember we got in a building one time, we took it over, it was in receivership, and the contractor, because he was trying to save on cost, he didn't blow in any of the insulation above the plumbing. And so the temperatures got down, below 5 degrees one day, and every single pipe in the building froze, and the pipes burst. It did like $300,000 a day. This is back in 2010, so it's probably like $3 million today, of damage to the building. And we had no idea, just like, how would you know that the insulation wasn't blown in, or are you going to cut in the drywall
yeah,
and see if the insulation? So if you get the property and didn't even build it yourself or contract it yourself, you don't even know what unknown risks are there too. So
that's a fantastic example of the kind of stress that I no longer have to deal with now that I own Bitcoin. It's a beautiful thing.
it is.
And
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and the problem is like the financialization of everything. Now because the dollar is broken and you can't save money, now you're buying houses just to save money, just to preserve your purchasing power, which is obviously what Bitcoin solves as a hard money asset. But long before we started talking about real estate, you're asking about my payments company.
Yeah, sorry.
Do you want
Yeah,
to
we got
return back
derailed.
to?
Yes.
We did.
Yes. Well, one last anecdote. I was
Yeah.
I was on a fishing trip with my dad, and he was talking about the financial system and a diverse portfolio, and he's like, I know what you're going to say, that I'm crazy for owning all these other assets, and not having all my money in Bitcoin is actually the risky move. I'm like, yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly what I'm going to say, because it's true. Bitcoin is the most conservative investment. You know everything about it. I've spent thousands of hours studying it. I know its monetary properties. I know they're making more dollars forever, and I don't need to own anything else. And so, to that point, it really is. It takes away so much of the stress of trying to invest or find a way to preserve your wealth. It's just like, for $150, I can, keep my net worth safe, and sleep easy at night, and not have to worry about all this lunacy. So, anyways, I just wanted to tack that on, wrap up the tangent. Now we'll get back to your payments company and Polaris, and what you guys are doing.
Yeah. Wait. So what do you mean by $150?
I was just like a hardware wallet. So
Oh, got it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
You add a
Yeah.
seed plate in, you get multiple wallets. Okay, I'm being little hyperbolic. Maybe like $1,000 for a good proper setup. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Self
either way.
custody.
Yes.
It's not your Bitcoin if you don't have self custody.
Yes.
Pay a few dollars,
Yeah.
get self custody. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's rewind 15 years for a second. Um, I graduated from college, 2008. Nobody would give me a job for good reason. I had no skills, and I I left. I went to hike the Appalachian Trail. I walked from Georgia to Pennsylvania. Came back. I still had no skills. Still couldn't get a job. Uh, and you can just do stuff. And so I went to my dad, who was an entrepreneur, and I said, teach me your ways, and began to learn about small businesses. And he's working with small businesses. And when I was in college, I had also worked with small businesses, and I learned that payments suck. I learned that they're a real source of contention for merchants. That they were it's expensive to accept money. The tech is bad in many cases. There's little to no customer service. You call a 1-800 number. There's foreign language barrier. They're reading scripts. They don't talk to you like you're a real human. They don't empathize with you. They don't understand your real needs. There is no relationship. They don't know your name. You're just a number in their database. And I wanted to do something about it. And I met someone who was in the payments industry, and he ended up becoming a mentor of mine. But it was trial by fire. I called him up. I got settled in. We had just moved from Tennessee to Washington State. I called him up and I said, okay, I'm settled in, I'm ready to go. Where do I go from here? He said, okay, great. Just go out and start talking to some businesses. Tell them you can save them some money. Call me when you got somebody. And he hangs up. That was it. That was literally like that was the training course.
That's our business
So
model. So go out, talk to some
yeah,
businesses. Tell us
yeah,
when someone wants to adopt a better money.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
yeah.
So I hit the streets and I started just walking into businesses, uh, and door knocking, as they say. Although you don't literally knock doors when it's a business, but
Well, it depends what
it was
kind of
really cool.
business, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So that's really how I got started. Ultimately, it snowballed because I really tried to. One of the problems in my business, in my industry, is that the people don't treat you like they would want to be treated, and so the fees are high. The tech is bad. They don't care. The customer service is bad. Like I don't do anything that innovative, really. I just provide a good service. I just am honest. I just like do what I said I was going to do. I have basic company core values. We're a very simple business. We just follow through. Here's the thing though, it doesn't happen in my industry. It's so many times the rates start creeping up. 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, as soon as you're not looking over your shoulder, they start increasing the rates. They don't answer the phones. They the list goes on. So, I've been very fortunate. I've been able to help out thousands of merchants over the time. And then in 2025, a survey came out. The number one concern for merchants right now is inflation. And not to get too woo woo, but I had this like kind of vision or dream where I was with my grandkids and we had experienced hyperinflation. There was economic collapse, and my grandkids, they were like, "Grandpa, why didn't you do something when you knew you studied the history of money, you studied monetary policy and Austrian economics, and you knew about the debt problem, and yet you continued to just process fiat payments. Why didn't you do something?" And uh, and so I knew I had to do something. And if you go back to that survey, okay, well, what's the solution to infinite inflation that is impacting very real businesses? 99% of businesses are small businesses. Nearly half of all workers in this country work for small businesses. Like 2/3 of every dollar spent at a local business stays in the local community. They're really important for our local communities. Small businesses are like the backbone of America. And so to me, if I zoom back 15 years, I'm like, okay, well, my job is to put cash back into the pocket of business, support small businesses, help those businesses, because I believe that if we can help small businesses, then their communities will be helped, their communities will flourish. If our communities flourish, America flourishes, and people flourish. Okay, and so that's when I started. In addition to Polaris Payments, my fiat brand, I have a Bitcoin payments brand called the Bitcoin Payments Advisor. And that is where we are beginning to help small businesses accept Bitcoin and have a solution for the number one concern of inflation. It's tough. It's really, really tough owning a business. And you've got volatility. Prices are going up. There's tariffs. There's all kinds of things that are creating um, a really challenging time for a business. And we're very early with payments. If you look at the three use cases of money, we're very much still transitioning from the store value use case to medium of exchange. We're very early there, but that is really my mission at this point: is helping empower everyday business owners, because that really is going to uh, be required before Bitcoiners can pay. I talk to Bitcoiners and they're like, "Yeah, I'd love to pay with Bitcoin, but I can't. They don't accept Bitcoin." I'm like, okay, well, that's where I come in.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing not the exact same thing, but that is a part of the services we offer at Sovereign too. And it's like, I always say there needs to be 10 sovereigns, then 100 sovereigns, and 1,000 sovereigns. Like there's just an infinite need for this service to help these businesses get onboarded, and there's definitely there's not enough Bitcoiners today. Even if all the Bitcoiners went to help onboard businesses, we still wouldn't have enough firepower to help all the businesses that need to be helped. And so, to the extent that we can actually get out there, get in front of these people, help them get set up to take payments, and obviously this Square thing is going to be huge as well. But to begin these sort of medium of exchange, and I'm still shocked how long it's taken for merchants to adopt this. To me, it's very surprising that it's taken so long. And yeah, maybe we do just, excuse me, have to go through the store of value transition here, where first they got the pain point of inflation. Okay, I need to do something about this. All right, how do I store in a better money? And then maybe we can move to the medium of exchange. I mean, that's pretty much been the story of the businesses we've dealt with, is that they're like, okay, I need to solve my store of value problem, and then the payments thing is kind of like an add-on, a bonus. I'm curious if you've seen the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I talk about accepting a form of money that stores value over time, really I'm leaning more on the inflation resistant money, the store value use case of form of money. The medium of exchange use case though, where it's actually not you're not just, an alternative to DCAing, dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, where you accept Bitcoin as effectively another form of dollar cost averaging. There's a lot of like real world use cases for a real merchant. Uh, I mean, thousands of times I have talked to merchants about exorbitant, excessive fees. Bitcoin solves this. Hundreds of times I've talked to merchants about chargebacks. And the problem with chargebacks is if you're a business, and remember, if you're a business, if you're a retailer, if you're an online business, in order to accept money, you have to go through the fiat duopoly. And so that means you're exposing yourself to chargebacks, which means a cardholder can call their bank and say, I never got my product and service. I want my money back. And then, boom, the money goes out of your bank account. You get rug pulled, and you may or may not get to get that money back. Now, that means that every time you accept money, you have revenue coming in the door, which is, vast majority of businesses have revenue coming in the door. It's several months that you may or may not find out that you got to keep that money that you paid your vendors for, you paid your employees for, you paid your credit card processing fees. And now, if you do get a chargeback, and some of our merchants just never get chargebacks, it's amazing, it's great, but some of them do, and it's a huge thorn in their side. And so now, the funny thing is, one of our value propositions, Brandon, is that we allow you to submit chargebacks online instead of through fax machine. I'm not joking. So they receive this letter in the mail. They don't get an email a lot of times. They get a snail mail, and then it's all this paperwork about a chargeback, and it's a $500, $5,000, whatever the number is. And now they have to basically sit down, stop what they're doing, miss out on their opportunity cost of growing their business, helping real customers, helping real employees, and write down like a rebuttal and then fax it in a lot of times. More and more processors are allowing for online submissions, but a lot of these big legacy banks and legacy processors require a fax in 2025. And that's the only way that you could submit, by the way, is through fax. Okay. And then you just wait and you hope that you win. And sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, because these are centralized parties that don't know you. They don't care about you. They're just reading some document in some office space far away, and there's no ramifications based on their choice. There's no recourse. These are extremely powerful institutions, and they get to just Pick one. I don't know, card holder, merchant. I'll just pick one, and it's incredibly frustrating. And so the really cool thing about Bitcoin is that you've got payment finality. As soon as the money hits your bank account or hits your wallet, it's yours. It's yours to keep, and you're not going to get rug pulled. And that's a really cool thing. Um, it's so important. I think in COVID we saw a K-shaped economy. We saw a lot of fragility. We saw a lot of volatility, and I think that trend only continues with bank failures and regional banking crises. And the importance of redundancy and having alternative payment rails, I think, is only going to grow. Um, the number of merchants that I've had conversations with where they can't accept global money. And we've got one recently where they have a lot of Canadian customers. Well, in Canada, it's a 6-digit zip code, and in the United States, it's 5-digit zip code. And they needed AVS, which stands for Address Verification System, in order to mitigate for fraud, as well as reduce their fees because the costs are lower if you use the system. Well, it wouldn't let the software we needed to use for their particular setup wouldn't allow for Canadian cards. And this isn't like a super far away country. This is like our next door neighbor, and just these little tech nuances where it's like we live in a global world at this point. We have the internet. It's not going away. We can send a video, a text message, a phone call, and talk to people all around the world instantly. And yet our money has not yet reached that point. We've drawn these arbitrary lines on the world and said, well, this is where you can transact, and this is where, in this part of the world, you got to use certain kind of money, and this other kind of money, and they don't work together. And so there's a lot of, I could keep going, but long-winded answer, but there's a lot of real-world use cases where it just is better and simpler and faster and cheaper. It's also just, yeah, way faster, not just for consumers, etc. Okay.
Yeah, no, I was glad to let you keep going. I mean, all these are
Yeah.
real issues. I in my former life, we had companies that had to deal with chargebacks all the time. And another thing too is when you have these chargebacks, now you have to reserve for the chargebacks. And so you have this portion of your balance sheet, this capital that has to be set aside just in case you get these chargebacks. You're unable to deploy that now. And to your point, some of these are bigger numbers and whatever. And then, sometimes they would end up in a situation. So first of all, you have to pull this money off your balance sheet. It's no longer used. It's dead capital. It just sits there is almost a liability. Um, uh, you subtract it off the asset sides. It's like a pseudo liability. But either way, you're not able to use it. And then if you didn't reserve enough, all of a sudden you're in a position where you could get overdrawn. You might have to draw on your line of credit, but you don't have enough availability. And it's like your whole business can grind to a halt simply because, you didn't set aside enough of your money to cover this one instance that the craziest thing is you don't even know when it finally settles. It's not like you got a notice that, oh, the Federal Reserve has just ended their settlement period and all interbank transactions are now final. You have no effing clue. Like you have absolutely no. That could be they could settle tomorrow. They could settle 45 days from now. Things could get late. It could be so. You have no clue when your actual final settlement happens, and that is just an absolutely mind blowing scenario to expect any business owner to transact it. And to your point, not every business has to deal with this. Some don't at all. It's not a big part of the business, but the ones that do, it's like such an impediment to what they're doing in normal course of business that it's like almost you almost need a separate department to manage chargebacks and deal with it. I mean, I'm thinking of one company specifically. They had two people, two full-time employees. All they did was communicate with vendors, talk about chargebacks, try to get the number lowered, and that was it. That was their full-time. I mean, they were probably, I don't know exactly, but if I had to guess, probably making $80,000 to $90,000 a year per employee, like minimum. So there's another cost. Forget the reserves, forget the unknown settlement times. I have to pay people to push paper around for this absurd process as well. So I witnessed
Yeah.
that.
And let's say you get $70,000 a year worth of chargebacks. but their employee costs
Right.
$80,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen merchants literally they just write it off. I mean, they're like, I know that I'm a victim of fraud. I don't have time to deal
Oh yeah.
with being a victim.
Would see that
And
all the
just
time. They would just put an allowance in on the balance sheet, and then at the end of the year, they would just settle it out, run it through the income statement, and that was that. And it was just like, well,
yeah.
here's our 4% we lose every year because people say they didn't get the product or there was a corner chipped, and it's like we're not dealing with you know the
Yeah.
insanity of taking it back, issuing a new product, accounting for it, blah blah blah. So
The tough thing though is that for a lot of my clients, there is an emotional toll. That is, the way you and I just now are phrasing this, it's kind of like, yeah, it's just numbers. You just move some numbers around, not a big deal. It's like they feel like I mean, they are victims, and many of them are like, look, it's not even about the money. It's just that this is fraud. Like, how is it okay? How is it okay? I just can't wrap my mind around it, and I'm not okay with this. And here's the really frustrating thing for me is for the last 15 years, I shrug my shoulders. I mean, I do what I can, right? We've done a lot. We've advocated for our merchants, and we've submitted things on their behalf, and we've done all kinds of hand holding. I've got an incredible team. We've made a huge impact and saved a ton of money for merchants. However, we still live within the fiat duopoly. And the number of times myself and my team members have had to shrug our shoulders and say, like, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. It just gets exhausting after a while. And I'm deeply grateful that I can now offer an alternative rail.
I mean,
And I no longer have to shrug my shoulders.
I mean, you brought up something too that resonated with me. You said that in this fiat duopoly, in this system, you actually caring about the customer, puts you light years ahead. Just how bad people are abused, no one cares. And I will say, I did work in, the heart of the fiat beast at a commercial bank, but I will say, I will give my employer credit, is that the people there actually cared about the customers, and they did go out of their, yes, they had to navigate this atrocity of a system, but they did help the customers navigate it. And that is a huge reason that we had a lot of customers that loved us and loved our institution, was the people at our institution actually treated these customers. They listened to them. They understood their problem. They wanted to resolve it. And a lot of times they would, provide solutions navigating this system that did help them out. But what was required to navigate the system, to get around these things, to just try to get a wire out or try to be able to receive a wire or initiate an ACH. I mean, it was just beyond painful. And the fact that you have a system where you need empathy to basically help like these people get through dealing with it, like that that scenario shouldn't even exist in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very broken system. And I'm hopeful, these very large legacy systems take a lot of time to change. And I'm very hopeful through your work and mine and the efforts of many others that we are able to accelerate this movement and help help more merchants. I think it's going to make a big impact for them.
I agree. I think it's going to make a huge impact. I mean, already the feedback we get from people, they're so grateful, and they're like, "Thank you. I would have never known how to do this." And hopefully, we do get better tools. I don't want it to be difficult for people to um, have to get set up accepting payments or storing their Bitcoin or buying Bitcoin or whatever. Like, and there's a ton of great companies out there that we partner with that provide much more streamlined solutions and better ways to do this. And it is coming. It will get out there, and it's going to make things better. And we're just going to have to keep grinding and grinding and grinding. And listen, you said you have two kids,
Got three.
three. Oh, okay. So you have three kids. We just had our first. Hopefully more to come. And it's like we want to leave a better world for them. I don't want them to grow up, especially as a millennial. I think you're a millennial as well. I'm like the old end of the millennial. I'm like the elder millennial. But uh, the world we grew up in was an interim period that was just completely unfair. And yes, we were able to navigate it. Yes, we had um, I don't know about your personal situation, but speaking for myself, I had a very good family, set me up to financially take care of myself and blah, 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 blah. But a huge part of our generation never had that. And it was simply because they were in a system that was completely unfair to them. It was impossible to win unless you knew how to game the system, unless you had a background in finance or debt or banking or understood these things. If you were just trying to be a photographer or a coffee shop owner or whatever, you didn't know any of this stuff, and it was basically impossible. And that shouldn't be the case. You should be able to trade your time and energy and be able to store your money in something that will last in the future. And I want my kids to have that future, and I'm sure you want your kids to have that future. And I'm quite hopeful we're going to make it happen. I'm already seeing it firsthand, and seeing the change it makes in people and just how they light up when they figure this thing out and when it clicks and makes sense for them. It's almost like instant hope. It's just like boom, there's a way out of this, the matrix. There's a way out of it.
I mean, we were talking about housing earlier, even just housing alone. I don't know how, if I were to, graduate college, many graduates are just right out the gate, loaded up with debt. And then now they have to find, at some point, housing, ideally affordable housing, but when you when you look at the cost of housing and wages, they just don't keep up. And for my kids personally, they're going to be fine. But I'm super privileged. I know that money is a game. I've been playing the game. I know that you can shuffle some paperwork and buy a distressed property and fix it up and all that stuff. Uh, but that's a lot of folks don't. They don't have the being an entrepreneur. I'm It's a lot of hard work, and a lot of folks are just much better off being an employee and not playing the games. And I spent a few years working on homelessness, and I we were talking about empathy for merchants. I was able to get real stories of real people and talk to real people on the streets and learn so much, instead of just being like another name, or sorry, another number and a statistic, right? And these are folks who are on the extreme end of suffering. Well, let's say you're not on the extreme end. It's still going to be super hard to afford housing. And then on top of that, you've got all the other fiat shenanigans happening, and it's going to be really challenging as we continue going on, and inflation continues to be more and more of a thing. Um, but to your point, we do have a form of money that brings hope, and that is a very exciting thing. And I'm extremely blessed to be working on it. And my encouragement, if we're gonna, since we're talking about payments, would be, if you have some Bitcoin and you're given an opportunity at a merchant to pay in Bitcoin, to not save, to not spend your dollars and save your Bitcoin. Like, you have a choice. Make a vote. Like you have an opportunity to vote with your money, and it has an impact. You can replace your Bitcoin. You can spend your Bitcoin and replace it. And you're helping the merchant. You're making a choice to opt out of the broken fiat system that is having an incredible impact on real people, especially the non-ownership class. Okay, I'll stop.
Oh,
I'll
I
stop going on.
listen. I agree 100%. I mean, I'll take it even a step further.
I
Every
get fired
dollar,
up.
every dollar you spend is X amount of Sats you don't hold. So, like, you're already not buying big. You've chose to not buy Bitcoin with your dollars. So, or you could have bought Bitcoin with your dollars and then spent it just the same as you're spending your dollars. So it's, it's just a short on Bitcoin to hold dollars and then spend those, when if you have a merchant that's accepting Bitcoin, to your point, or if you like, if you absolutely must keep some dollars around, then spend your Bitcoin, buy the sats back immediately. And not only does it not only does it benefit the merchant, and it kind of forces them, because you're like, I don't want to sell this thing, I want to go. It's kind of a forced hodl, a forced savings. So it forces business owners to think a lot harder about their consumption and their spending, if they have something they know they might have to go sell and then get dollars if they really want to go spend it. Also, just the mental process of, if you do understand Bitcoin, then you know what you're giving up if you actually want to go spend that. But there's another step too, of a lot of these merchants are new to Bitcoin. They've heard that, if I stick around for 4 or 5 years, I'm going to be able to get out of this inflation trap. Things are going to be rosier on the other side. And that's all true. But it can be demor, I mean, on my Bitcoin journey, I don't think there's anyone more convicted than me. And I mean, I've had times where it's just been like, man, what am I doing here? Did I make the right decision? Was it a good idea to be 100% allocated to Bitcoin? And it's like, even me, the most convicted guy on the planet, sometimes has been like, you know, did I do the right thing? Eventually, I come back and go, of course I did the right thing. But like, for people just getting into this, business owners that have heard about this, like, to get no payments in Bitcoin and to just see it sit there. And it's like, I got this set up. I have a cold wallet. I have a lightning channel open, or I set up this lightning wallet. It's just like, no one's even using it. Like, what's all the to do about this thing? Like, it's not that cool. And so make these merchants see how cool it is. Let them experience it firsthand. And then when you pay them in it, engage with them, talk to them, be their friend. Be like, hey, what brought you into Bitcoin? How did you get set up like this? What do you know about it? Do you want to come to a meetup? Could we hold a meetup here? And engage them as well. I know a big part, not everyone in the Bitcoin community is an extrovert like myself. And I think you would probably consider yourself an extrovert as well. Um, but just engage people, have human to human conversations with them, let them know that Bitcoin works, show them how cool it is, and talk to them about it.
100%. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's tough because we are early, and folks do not understand many times. Lots of folks do not understand Bitcoin. They they go, oh yeah, I own some crypto when you say Bitcoin, or they,
Of
oh
course,
yeah,
always.
it,
I have
yeah, yeah,
XRP. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, because I had a conversation recently where she goes, "You're into Bitcoin, right?" I said, "Yes." She was like, "Oh, awesome! I just bought some XRP." That's like verbatim how the conversation went. And I asked her why, and she said, "Well, I missed out on Bitcoin, and so so that's why I bought XRP." And I said, "Well, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin." And really, I put it on myself, and I said, the problem is that us Bitcoiners talk about Bitcoin as we use the word Bitcoin, not sats or Satoshis. And just like there are cents that make up a dollar, really it's just houses and large things that should be denominated in Bitcoin at this point. Goods and services, everyday purchases, all of that. It's for most folks, you're not ever gonna afford a Bitcoin for a lot of folks, and that's okay. You don't need to own a whole Bitcoin. You can start with a single dollar. You can buy some satoshis, and but it takes time for
Oh, I
education.
agree. It takes time, but as the saying goes, be the change you want to see. Be out there.
Yeah.
Reward merchants for taking to your point, we are so early. Kudos to the merchants that actually take the leap of faith, that do this,
Yes.
that are willing to
Yes.
put themselves out there. Um, I'm sure some of these merchants that have Bitcoin signs in their window probably get mocked by some people. And so, like,
Yeah.
it's it takes a little bit of courage and strong will to do it. So reward them for doing it and engage them and have fun with it. So at the end of the day, got to have some fun too. Can't be all serious. You go absolutely nuts. So
Bitcoin is fun, man.
it
It's the
is.
future.
It,
You get to live in the future while most people are still living in the present.
yeah,
Pretty cool.
it's. I went back and I watched a documentary on a bunch of these folks making like they were working on like the Palm Pilot and like the Apple systems in like 1992 in some office in Silicon Valley, and it's like, man, those people like were like 25 years ahead of the iPhone, sitting there, and it's like, I mean, that just had to be so cool. So now you get to do that opportunity. You have that opportunity, and take advantage of it. So I think that's a great note to go out on. So Jason, thank you so much for your time. Where do you want to send people for your company, both your companies, for you personally? What's best for people to check out?
Yep. So we are still plugging away at our fiat payments company. People still need to take credit cards. So you can check us out at polarispayments.com. That's Polaris payments with an S on the end.com. And then the Bitcoin Payments Advisor, the URL is bitcoinpaymentsadvisor.com. I also have a personal website if you want to learn a little bit about me. It's just jasonkeil.com. Uh, and I'm not really on social media, so that's the only way that you can find me. Or
It's
you
fine
can
by
also
me.
email me. It's jason at playerspayments.com.
I'm begrudgingly on Nostr
Yeah.
again. So, but
Yeah.
yes, as always, I'm Plebe Anon on Nostr. I do have a LinkedIn account, and then the Sovereign official account. We are on LinkedIn and X as well. Um, my wife keeps saying we need to get on Instagram, but I'm not sure how I feel about that. Although one of the our marketing guy at Sovereign is saying he wants to get on Instagram. So we'll see if that actually happens. I don't even know what we would do on there, to be perfectly honest with you, but I'll leave that to the professional. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks.
Jason, thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed the chat, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, man.